a special presentation of Ricky G Live on D99's Facebook Live. Highlight your music. D99.
Hey, what's up? It's Ricky G, and you're watching Facebook Live, D99 Radio on Facebook Live. How are you? And thank you for joining us today. You know, over the past couple of weeks and ever since the quarantine started, we've gotten a chance to do these Facebook Lives with some of our favorite featured artists. And today, Will joining us today. Will, how are you?
Doing all right. How you doing?
Now, Will, you have made some iconic music. I mean, you are, known for your, what is this? Like, this is going to be your sixth album, right? Your sixth solo album, right?
My third solo record.
Third solo record, and then total 6 albums because you worked with Arcade Fire, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Hey, and you know, so right now you are in. You said you're in, where are you at right now? To let everybody know where you're at during this quarantine.
Well, in general, I'm in Brooklyn, but today I'm in the woods of Massachusetts, randomly traveling from my parents' home.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? In other words, is it better you think right now to be like in rural or in like the middle of the city?
New York right now feels pretty chipper. It's strange, and we're braced for a second Great Depression, but it's the summer and people are out there wearing masks, but they're out, and it feels a little hopeful, but we're not there yet. But it feels better than I thought it would.
Well, you know, I've known about you since the early days, not only because of the success of your music, but we were both living in Brooklyn around the same time, and there was, what was it called again? The Wall Street with the Zuccotti Park riots. What would we call it? Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah.
You know, so there was been these kind of things. You know, New York has always been used to these kind of happenings, but this got a little bit different. It got a little bit intense. What was your opinion? What was from seeing it there on the ground? Because I know you're very much a Brooklynite in that sense. You're very involved in the community.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the first wave of protests was quite intense. I mean, I didn't go out because I have a family and there's a pandemic on.
Yeah.
And then they put in a curfew. You weren't allowed out after 8 p.m., which was
so bizarre,
really stupid. Just made everyone mad. Everyone was like, fine, I'm going to go out then. If you're telling me I can't go out.
Especially because, for everybody watching, I mean, I'm sure everybody's got ideas of, what New York looks like and feels like, but it's a city where you're walking around. I mean, or in Brooklyn, it's worse because you can't even just like catch a cab. You have to either get a car service or get into the subway.
No, I was like, I'm going to go to the corner store to get milk. Oh, I guess it's technically illegal. Like, we're like 50 minutes from Manhattan. We're in the middle of nowhere in Brooklyn. Yeah, Brooklyn's the size of, Brooklyn's like the third biggest city in the U.S. So,
especially
it was
like around the time that, I mean, you really kind of saw the sprawl of it all. I mean, in other words, Brooklyn's always been, huge and it's always been very populated. But really, I remember, I mean, I have to be very, very honest with you. When I first moved to New York, I wasn't as aware. I mean, I remember the first time we went to New York as a teenager, we went to Peter Luger's, right? The steakhouse, right? Yeah. And they literally told us from the hotel, like, just get down, go to Peter Luger's and get back into the subway. And that's Williamsburg. Williamsburg is like the trendiest, most kind of like already safest and most populated place. And back then, just as recently as, this was 20 years ago, it was still considered dangerous. So New York has always had that, hasn't it?
Yeah. No, I'm kind of in South Brooklyn. I'm closer to the beach than to Williamsburg, which is mind blowing. You go to the beach, not even the city beach, but like a white sand state park beach. You're like, where am I? I'm on the beach. All right, I'm in Queens, I guess, but what's going on? I'm in the ocean.
Because where did you grow up? Did you grow up there where you're at right now? Is that your childhood home?
No, I grew up in Texas.
Okay, right on. Okay, so I grew up in Texas too, and I think that we're used to more of kind of like the beaches up in New York are very different. They're very like kind of bleak. So for you to mention like the white sands and stuff, yeah, it must have been very kind of surreal to be there.
Yeah.
Well, dude,
no, it's wild.
Your new album, is dropping in September, and I'm very excited to hear everything that's coming out on that. But I've had a chance to listen to the first single, Surrender, and watch the video. Congratulations on the video, and congratulations on being able to get all that footage before. I love that you even put during one of the captures. How did you phrase it? Pre-quarantine footage.
Yeah.
So explain a little bit about the theme of the music video and of the album in general.
Yeah, so the music video, I mean, the song Surrender is about nostalgia and love and friendship. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I've got all this footage from making the record. I should just make a making of video. It'll be cute. And as I was cutting it, it was from 6 months ago. It was from 5 months ago. And it was like utterly foreign. Like, oh, there's people in my house and we're playing music and we're touching each other and touching things. And like, there's all this joy on our faces.
Isn't it crazy how quickly, as soon as the quarantine started, we started noticing all those behaviors that were soon to be gone? In other words, as soon as you turned on the TV, within weeks, you already started noticing those kind of things. Now, something else interesting, obviously as a musician, you have like really like this creative freedom that's not found in, in other creative outlets like journalism or etc. But so there's a certain tongue-in-cheekness, in the whole pre-quarantine footage. But there's also an element right now, we're living through this whole cancel culture, right? Where you can say the slightest thing and suddenly people are blowing you up for whatever slightest thing. And I mean, we're talking about, for those watching or listening outside of the US who might not be completely aware of what cancel culture means, is when somebody says something on Twitter or anything like that, or even on public, they literally get canceled. I mean, I'm watching Bill Maher, he talked about the story of a man who literally lost his business because of something his daughter said at 16. So when she was 16 years old, and that was posted on Twitter, and now literally like they're kicking him out of his building, his business, his clients have stopped. So I'm wondering how much of that goes into play in a real sense, in a real world sense, even though you have this creative freedom, how much does the public image that now you have to present to the world, do you think about that when you're coming up with the themes for your music and for your music videos?
Not at all. I mean, I have always, since I was a child, I would never say anything, because why would you ever say anything? You'll get beat up by the other kids. so it's not, to me, it's not a contemporary cancel culture that it's just, why would you ever say anything? Like if you let anything slip, you're going to get the shit beat out of you. So.
I guess what I'm referring to is some of the,
but same with art. Like if you make art, if you think about the world, it's just going to be so brutal. If you make like even something boring, it's devastating to you. So you just have to ignore it. You just have to make what you think is true.
I guess the reason why that popped into my head was because just in that still frame from where it says pre-quarantine footage, and of course it talks about nostalgia and based on your previous work and already being an established persona, it's easy for you to see the intent. But right now we're living in a time where if you wouldn't have put that, you might have gotten people going, wait, so you guys were filming a music video? I mean, that kind of thing is really worrisome to people that are, especially right now in the creative arts, doing kind of like trying to stay afloat by doing like either these mini concerts or etc. and where they're starting to get pushback from it. So I'm wondering what your opinion on that kind of thing is.
I mean, the last few shows, I haven't done much touring in the last couple of years, but I've done a lot of individual shows, and I always try to have comics open for me. And they're like generally a little younger than me, like around 30, and they are not inhibited. Like it's so goddamn funny, and they're not afraid to say anything. And there's trans comics and non-binary comics and all sorts of comics who I've done shows with. And I don't know, I don't feel like there's any fear. It feels pretty great. It feels pretty lively, but that's just my corner of the world.
No, that's cool. And I'm glad to hear that. I mean, like LA and stuff is very progressive. To be honest with you, I'm just trying to get a sense of the beat out there because I've very much been a lot stuck at home, stuck indoors.
Yeah.
What has your, I'm wondering, what has your experience in your daily life been like recently?
I mean, I have kids at home, so it's just kids. Yeah. It's summer now, thankfully. We were doing online school, which was brutal. But yeah, just waking up and trying to get outside, trying to kick a soccer ball, trying to play some baseball or something. But it's hard. I mean, I have an 8-year-old, and it's like I'm his only playmate because he can't. Now he can throw a ball to a kid, right? But he can't like run around. He can't like play tackle football. So I have to be the guy that gets tackled.
And what's it like with seeing your family? Like, for instance, your parents, were you able to see them and just kind of, I mean, how did you guys approach that?
We were coming from New York. We got tested. It took forever for the test to get back. So we ended up seeing my parents before the test results came in. But we'd been quite careful, and they'd been quite careful. They live up in Maine, but it was interesting.
I mean, I guess I'm asking you because, my family just kind of, this week we're planning like to meet up next month, and they're telling me, that I should go to Texas. And I'm really kind of wondering what the deal is, what the appropriate
I didn't have to
thing.
get on a plane. I don't know if I would get on a plane right now. I just had to drive. I just had to get in the car. So simpler times.
and so what are the, I mean, obviously, you're going to be doing a lot of kind of, digital promotions for the album, etc. And I guess, let's be honest, like there's a really cool thing about that, because people, now take it at the same value as if you were doing physical stuff. In other words, it won't affect, it shouldn't affect, the overall release, etc. But tell me a little bit of how you see, just like how we were talking about, how in the footage you see all these kind of micro activities that now have changed because of the context that we're in. How do you see touring, where you really shine as an artist, changing post-pandemic?
I have no idea. I mean, I can't even imagine it, because they have to get the virus under control.
Yeah.
And then, no, I remember when my friend's band started canceling shows, and, I remember seeing them posting on Twitter and Instagram being like, we rescheduled our dates for September back in March. Like, we rescheduled our dates for October. And I was like, okay. And then May rolled around. I was like, oh, I don't think we're playing shows in October. I honestly, it blows my mind. I have no idea what's going to happen.
No, tell me, what do you hope? What's your worst?
I just want the venues to be around still. All the little scrubby venues and all the little towns that are so awesome and beautiful. I want them to survive, which is scary.
And you mentioned something right there in that line that's, I think, interesting to point out, in the towns, etc. In other words, in New York and in LA, there's going to be a lot of venues that are just going to be saved, even if it's just because the market is able to support that. But in some of these smaller towns, etc., where bands have huge followings and sometimes even more devout. I mean, I've gone to shows in Brooklyn where there's, and this was, maybe a few years back. I don't know how the kids are nowadays, but like literally in Brooklyn, like they didn't, everybody loved the band, but nobody clapped because it was too, awkward. In other words, right? But in a small town, they go and they show their love. Tell me about some of the places that you like to go on tour normally. Like, what are your favorite places? Where would you recommend as far as music scenes?
I mean, Chicago has always been really, really wonderful. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, Chicago. I mean, overseas, Ireland, Mexico. Like every single city we played in Mexico, it's just astounding.
Mexico is really impressive, right? How their fans are really intense, right? They know all the lyrics.
It's both so musical, but also there's like a rock culture. Like people like rock and roll music, so it goes off. It's really amazing.
Well, a few weeks ago, and actually I even brought it up during one of our Facebook interviews, I was bringing up the Border Blasters, the AM radio stations that were broadcasting rock and roll into the U.S. and across the world, when they had these kind of clear channel signals that were able to cross the Atlantic, etc. At a time when AM radio in the U.S. was still playing kind of like very much, beautiful music, or the hits. Where do you see the best avenues for your music? I mean, obviously you guys are a mainstream act in the sense that you get radio play, etc. But tell me about how internet and digital, etc., fits into your mix.
I mean, the best thing about it is just that people can get the music, and they can get it for free, if not cheap. I mean, ever since people started stealing music, I couldn't quite be mad at them, because it's like, the music needs to be heard, and if that's how it gets heard, that's how it gets heard. So we grew up with Napster.
Yes, and we grew up with Napster, so we grew up used to that. Now it's interesting. Like, I want to take a moment to note that some of the questions and some of the things that I've been wondering, and specifically with you, is because not only are you a very talented musician, but you're also a very educated guy. You took some time to actually go to school, and you went to Harvard, right?
Yeah, I got a master's in public administration from the government school there.
That's awesome. I mean, congratulations on that. I think that's as big of an accomplishment as a record or anything. Wouldn't you think so? I mean, that kind of education and being able to to. I mean, let's be honest. As a musician and with the success that you've had, you could have very easily said, "I'm just gonna like chill," and you still could have had the same kind of platform and been listened to and your opinion taken seriously. Obviously, now with this, there's a sense of how cultured you are with it. I mean, let's talk about some of the things that you've gotten into, because I think it's important to note that not only did you go to school for it, but you've taken actions in the real world with your knowledge. Tell me about some of the things that you get involved in.
Yeah, the one thing I was doing was on the last Arcade Fire tour, I was hosting these disco town halls where we would finish playing in an arena, or for thousands of people. We'd end with Wake Up, and then I was like, oh, well, we're all here. Our hearts are all open. We've just listened to music that's really beautiful. We're all thinking about the world. Not all of us, but definitely there's a lot of people in this room that are thinking about what's wrong with this city, what's wrong with this country, what are we going to do? So I would book venues, like the venues I was talking about, like a bar in Tampa or a little club in New York after Madison Square Garden, and it'd be a couple hundred people. I'd play some music, and then I would normally bring like a local politician and a local activist, like a city councilman and someone who is advocating for change. And we would kind of discuss what's going on, like what's going on with the jail system in New York City, what's going on with disenfranchisement in Florida, like how can we make it so that people can vote in Florida. And it was really moving. Like people, 200 people would come out at midnight and come and talk politics. Yeah. And the venues are so beautiful because they're there as community centers. They're there for the arts, and to have this mix happening was really wonderful.
Well, and with your mix as both an artist and with your passion in this field, it really sets a tone, if you will, for these things to be able to really have really interesting conversations. And I'm curious as to how, now that you're not going to be able to do some of those in live venues, how you'll be carrying that over to digital. But we'll have to save that for the next interview, because I think you have to go to your next one. But let's set that up. I really want to keep talking with you. I have many more questions for you, and I'd love to know about your future plans for this. But I do want to congratulate you on the release of Surrender, which is available to stream right now on YouTube. It came out, it's been around since July 14th, and it's getting some really great feedback. It's worth a listen. The album comes out in September. I believe it's the 25th.
The 25th.
That's awesome. And it's called Generations, and it's going to be available for you to stream on the 25th, wherever you get your music. Will Butler, thank you so much for joining me today on the show. I really appreciate it, and I hope you'll come back soon so we can continue our conversation.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Will Butler joining us today live on Ricky G Live here on D99 Radio. I will see you guys today at 3 p.m. here on D99. See you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye.